Hi, my name is Sally, and I am an international speaker, multi-book author, and a business coach. And I'm excited to share with Pearl today.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl and welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Pearl. And I'm so excited. Our guest is up really early for us. We're recording early here in Tampa, Florida. And she's a dear friend of mine that I've met through another connection. And I just love that she is joining us today. And my friend Sally Wurr is an expert at teaching others how to take the necessary steps to calm the chaos of life. She is known as the Storm Whisperer. Her stories teach people how to weather the storms of life without spiraling into an abyss. She challenged you to rethink and question your daily routines. Sally continues at the helm of SW Insurance Corp, where she is the president and founder. It is a corporation she built that assists corporations in designing, prioritizing, simplifying their employee benefits program. She is also an international speaker and author of 4 books of her own and 3 as co-author. She has been a guest on many TV and radio shows as well as podcasts, and we're excited to have her with us today. Hey, Sally, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you, Pearl, and those pearls of wisdom.
Yay, I love having you. I love your background, girl boss. I just love that.
my admin got that for me, and she loves calling me the girl boss, right?
I love it.
And joy is my favorite word. It's always been my favorite word, and it's how do we bring joy to ourselves and to those around us, and it's just whenever I'm on a podcast, it reminds me, yeah. I may be the girl boss, but I like the joy part of life and what it brings.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about joy later on the show. I've got some questions for you about joy, but tell everybody a little bit about yourself and where you're at now in the world.
I am in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, which is the southernmost suburb of Denver Metro. So I have easy access to the big city, but I'm really in suburbia, right? And I love it. We always call it the bubble, right? And I love the bubble. But yeah, I've been here for 31 years. It's the longest I've ever lived in one place in my entire life, by far. I mean, prior to 31 years here was 7 years in Oregon. My father was Air Force. So I was an Air Force brat, traveled all over the country. And then my husband and he worked for a large insurance carrier, and they moved us around a little bit as well. And when they moved us to Denver, we felt it was a great place to raise our daughter and really have a balanced life, right? It's all about life balances. And we have the big city and all the things, the culture and the sports and all of that we wanted. But we live outside of that. So we had the recreation centers and, this just the easygoing stuff, and good place to build a business.
I love that. And tell us about your business. So tell us about what you do and why you decided to go on this journey you're on today.
I spent a lot of years of my life as a hairdresser. I was an advanced haircutting and makeup artist for like 20 something years and loved that. Right. But when I got my 3rd license, because we moved to 3 different states, I said, enough. I'm tired of rebuilding, right? You rebuild and you rebuild and you rebuild, and you can't take that with you. And then I moved it. My husband was in the insurance industry, and I saw what other insurance brokers were making. My husband was not a broker, but he worked with brokers. And I went, wow, that's kind of a cool gig. What do you mean the commission go to your bank account and you haven't seen that client in like 6 months? As long as they pay their premiums, you get paid? Sign me up. And so I've been in the employee benefits. I'm carved out a niche in the employee benefits. So SW Insurance Corp stands for Sally Wurr, but it's SW Insurance Corp. And I've helped and assisted CEOs and CFOs for over 30 years, building their benefits packages for their employees. But I am an extrovert, if you haven't noticed, and I get bored really easy. And I've been doing employee benefits for a long time and love it, right? I wake up every day and I love what I do, and that's not going anywhere. My insurance brokerage is not going anywhere. But I was introduced to authorship back in 2007, well, probably even earlier than that. But I wrote my first book in 2019. And the whole concept was, I just wanted to, my ego said, wouldn't it be cool to be able to go to Amazon and put my name in and a book pops up? And so I wrote Succeed with Purpose, and I love the book. I wrote the book because so many people have these dreams and goals in life, but and I always talk about one of the things I like to talk about is tools in our toolbox, right? Those tools that we're born with and those tools that we learn along the way. I discovered very quickly that a lot of people had never been taught how to get from point A to point B to point C to point D. And I didn't realize that it was a problem, but it's a problem. And so I wrote Succeed with Purpose to share stories about how people can get what they want in life by just understanding what the steps are involved to get you from the concept to the reality. And but I wrote the book and talk about the book, but never did anything with the book, right? But I could go to Amazon and type my name in and my book would show up. Then I, 2020 happened. 2020 started out with it was a fantastic January and February, absolutely fantastic. And then March happened. Early March, I actually had I was blessed to be able to be a part of a women's group that did a preliminary writing boot camp with Michelle Moras down in Westcliff, Colorado, which is 2.5 hours south of me and really in the country, truly in the country. And I was able to get the bug, and we started talking about a collaborative book, which is where Hold My Crown came from. Hold My Crown came because of that little collaborative group. And then a week later, my life really changed. My husband went for a walk on a beautiful Sunday morning in March. And when he came back home, I happened to be here in my office looking out the window and saw him walking up the driveway. And I was FaceTiming with our daughter. And he was walking funny. I went, well, that doesn't look good, right? I mean, there again, we talk about the bus hitting us when we're not watching. And so I met him at the door and I said, what's going on? And he goes, well, what do you mean what's going on? I said, well, you're walking like a little off. He says, yeah. He says, I was trying to go across the street and my left foot wouldn't lift. I went, well, that's not good. And anyway, and so I brought him inside and I kind of stumbled inside and decided that, mentally, right, he's either having a stroke or he's pinched a nerve or something like that created that. And I said, well, we have, I think we need to take you to the ER. But late March of 2020, we had this big blow up at starting out with COVID, right? And my husband's a severe asthmatic, and the worst place for an asthmatic is in the emergency room of a hospital. I mean, it's just like the worst, full of germs, right? But I didn't have a choice. Because I truly thought we were in stroke category. And so we took him there, and there was nobody there. It's the emptiest I've ever seen in the emergency room. But bottom line is, shortening the story is after an MRI and a CAT scan, he didn't have a stroke. The doctor said, well, what's going on with these 30 plus tumors in your brain? He said, I just stopped talking. He said, I just stopped counting when I got to 30. And my husband looked at me and I looked at him, and the doctor says, you didn't know you had brain tumors? No. Nobody routinely gets brain scans, right? I mean, we just don't. And he always had headaches because he's an asthmatic. Anyway, long story short on that is he was diagnosed with a very aggressive cancer and he died 4 months later. So that's my story of COVID, right? I mean, it's just, but from that, I journaled that whole time and still journal. I started talking about me, we, me, which is where Power of Awakening started. And I talk about in our early teens, early 20s, we're all about me, right? What am I going to do? And what's my career field going to be? And what do I expect to have happen? And on we go. And then we get married. And I was married at a very young age. My husband and I were married for 45 years. And you become a we. And I like to talk about, marriages are business partnerships. And a lot of people don't like to think of their marriage as a partnership, but we did sign a contract. And everything pretty much for most of us, everything we do is a we, right? We don't go out and buy a piece of property without, having a conversation with our spouse. As a rule, most of us don't do that. And so I had this 45 years as a we. Everything that we did, for the most part, in our personal life was a we. Now, we both had our own corporations. He had his and I had mine, and I split mine, which is another story completely. I split mine away from his in 2008. And it was simply because we do business differently, right? And so for 45 years, I was a we. And then all of a sudden now in July, really, July 27th is when he passed away of 2020, I am a me again. So after 45 years of a we, how and who are you as a me? And that's how the book Power of Awakening became my first book of my trilogy, is because it's there's a lot of soul searching had to go on, and I discovered things about myself that I was clueless about, right? I just kind of roll along, and I've always been good at navigating chaos. I call it controlled chaos. I don't mind chaos, but it's got to have some control to it, right? But there again, there's a lot of people that don't. They spiral into this abyss, and they don't really know where they want to go. And so I wrote Power of Awakening because I wanted people to get a little bit more in touch with, are they in the driver's seat of their life, or are they a passenger in the seat that somebody else is driving for them? Because from the moment we're born, we are judged. A brand new baby gets that APGAR test. It tells you if you're in the 100+% of weight and height and all that kind of stuff, or if you're in the negative numbers, right? We are all judged even from that very first moment. But the more important judgment is, how do we judge ourselves?
That's so powerful, and you're right. As soon as we're born, we are judged. Like there's this whole test, and this is how your child's doing on the test compared to others and everything. And then, wow, Sally, I was sitting here going, okay, he's walking into the driveway, and you're looking at him, and like you said, all this COVID and bringing him there, and then to hear those words that you had these tumors. I mean, you're right. We don't go and test our brain. I think the first time we really test our brain is when we think, oh, am I getting Alzheimer's, dementia? Is there a test we could do for that? We don't regularly do that. And it reminded me of a story. I had a client who, when I was helping her with her weight loss journey, it was a very low carb diet where you can get headaches the first few days. And she credits me all the time. She says all the time, if it wasn't for me coming to this program, I wouldn't have known. So she got these headaches, and I told her, I go, well, that's just normal. It's part of it. And like, after I said, for the first 3 days, she's doing everything. And she's like, Pearl, it's not going away. I'm like, okay, do me a favor. Go to the Salt Grotto, which is a place here in Tampa. You go in, it's a big salt room. And I said, go sit in there. Tell the ladies I sent you, and sit in there. And I said, if that doesn't help you, I want you to go to the doctor. I said, because I don't know what else to suggest. And she went to the doctor, and she found out she had a brain tumor. And it was like really significant brain tumor. Today, it's all clear, it's all taken care of, and she's a beautiful person that also helps with my retreats. And so I was like, when you said that, I thought if she had not come to me, she wouldn't have known. And she had a little boy at the time, and he's almost, I think he's in a sophomore in high school now. So it's just so powerful. And I was sitting here as you talked about the me, we, me. It's funny, last night, Sally knows everybody that my son passed away in July. We had great conversations with each other when I visited a couple months ago back in Colorado Springs. And it was so interesting that you said me, we, me, because last night I was sitting there. I mean, I'm still a mom, I've got Nate, I'm still a mom. But last night I'm sitting there going, I'm a mom that had 2 kids, and now it's 1. And it's like, and I prayed last night to God, and I talked to Matthew, and I'm like, I feel like I'm getting further away from him, that as the years go on, which is normal, that feeling. And so yesterday, Sally knows that I spoke at an event yesterday. I actually have a recording that his girlfriend had sent me, where he gives this positive affirmation to his girlfriend about how she's just such a queen and all this stuff. And I decided that I played that when I was heading, and it was so powerful. But it was sitting here thinking, and my husband and I have been together for almost 40 years ourselves. And I was like going, wow, something happened I was like, oh my goodness, like for either one of us, something, that whole, because you're right, a marriage is a business. And somebody asked me one time, how do you make it work? I'm like, first of all, know that it's a business. I mean, I got together with Chuck at 19 years old, very, very young as well.
Same
And I
here.
said, yeah. And then I said, secondly, create a space so that you have good conversations, but recognize the other person, if something's on your heart, may not be ready to talk about what's bothering you or what's your, on your heart. So always, I said, we always open with, are you open to receiving? And then if you're not at that time, then we allow each other 24 hours to be like, okay, we got to come back and circle around. And so I was sitting here, as you said, me, we, me. I'm like, well, how am I going to do that for myself someday? If I, God forbid the day comes and I have to, but it's like, wow, you're right. Cause we have to go through that identity again, right? We have that identity of this is me. We have the identity of this is who I am as a wife and for, mom. And then the identity like the after, right? And it's like, that was so powerful. You said me, we, me. And then I also love how you talked about and what your books do, because we think we can go to A to D and just get there fast. We forget that there's work we have to do in between. And that work that's in between can be hard work. It's not easy work. You're going to realize that there's people on your balcony, as my friend Lisa calls it, that you have to not allow on your balcony. You're going to realize there might be training you have to do, and it's going to suck to maybe go back to school. All those different things to get to the end goal that you want to. And I love, you said that the tools and everything. I always love to share that, we're, like you said, we're born with this stuff. We have to work on it. And if you don't work on it for yourself, then you're cheating yourself. But really, you're also cheating those who, like Sally here, sharing her story of, what she's gone through with the loss of her husband, what she's gone through to share her books about how you go from, that power of having that purpose. And it's so powerful. And so, Sally, what I want to know is one of the things we talk about is how we have, our Shiro journey, I like to call, like, how have you over the years with the things you've gone through, starting your business, taking your, separating your business from your husband's business, because like you said, you do things differently. My husband's my accountant and he's a retired auditor. So it's like so much fun when we have to do taxes every year. So, so like, how have you been able through all these years of these different things you've gone through, losses and successes, how have you been able to like put your self-care first? And what does self-care mean to you?
There's a definite imbalance that you have to constantly be aware of, right? And I would say that we're all guilty of different times of our lives of not taking care of ourselves, especially as moms. I mean, my daughter's an adult. I don't have to worry about her anymore. But I was part of a group a couple years ago, and it tested the seven areas of your life. And the test showed you where your biggest gaps are in your balance, right? And it was like, they used the F word. So finance, fitness, fun, friends, faith. I can't remember what the other two were, and I took it and I knew fitness was going to be my weakest link, right? Because I'm working on it. I'm working on it now. I'm aware of it. And it's okay. So that was an easy one. But I was surprised when fun was second. I'm going, I have fun. Okay, so this is part of what I learned from Powerful Awakening, right? As I was going through from as far back in my childhood as I can remember and all the things that happened and the ebbs and flows. Because I have a business mind, I'm an entrepreneur, and this is not my first rodeo. Everything that I do that I'm having fun with generally has a goal at the end, and it's usually financial, because that's how I count how well I'm doing, right? At least in the insurance world, it's what my commissions are, and it certainly is for my speaking and my writing and all of that. It has to have a monetization at the end of it. That's just the way I roll. So I realized that everything that I was doing for fun was somehow connected to making money somewhere down the road. Probably not with the people that I'm hanging with, but it opens up the doors. And so I have to work really, really hard at incorporating things that are fun that have nothing to do with my businesses. So, meeting friends at Topgolf. We have Topgolf here. Meeting friends at Topgolf for a drink and a burger and fries or whatever, and playing, golf. I apostrophe. Topgolf is not golf, but it's the closest I get to golf. Or you know, going on a retreat with friends just to be girl time and what's going on and just having those conversations that we don't really get a chance to have for long periods of time. And we got a little bit of that when we were in Colorado Springs. When we weren't on in the room for the speakers thing that we were doing, we had those moments where we could just sit down and just enjoy each other's company without worrying about anything else but what's going on in the room and each other. And so it's making time for more of those in my life. And I try to do a couple different things every week that incorporate connecting with others, activities that are fun. And so for me, that's the self-care part. Now that we're moving, we're probably another 45 days before we really get spring here where you can count on it. And so I have a couple of friends that we're going to start walking the different trails. I'm not a lot of people here in Colorado hike the 14ers. We got a lot of 14,000 foot mountains to hike, right? Some easy, some hard. I'm not that kind of a hiker. I live at 6,200 feet above sea level. And so I'm already at high altitude. I don't need to go any higher. So that would be the long answer to how I do self-care. It's being aware, just trying to be aware.
I'm with you. I don't think I would be going on some of those big mountains.
I love this state, right? Because people can do that.
Yeah, it's so pretty. I was just there in January. It's so pretty, and the views that you guys have there. I mean, it's just breathtaking. I just loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. And like you said, I think August we'll be coming back. So I don't know what the weather's like then, but I'm excited for your
beautiful
spring. Oh, good. I'm excited. I'm so excited.
We will definitely be taking a hike through Garden of the Gods.
Oh, I'm in for that one. That's for sure. That's on my list. And I love that you pointed out too, because I think sometimes as a professional, as an entrepreneur, that we think we have to do all our fun tied around work and business and how do we create those relationships, or in our back of our mind we're thinking, how do I create the relationship that might lead to something for me, right? And I love that you recognize that you had to separate those two. And you're right. I mean, I would have never thought that the F for you would be on there, just a little bit of time I've known you, and so it had me thinking, it's like, how many times our listeners think about that? Have you gone to do something because you thought there's a gain for it to do with, your pocketbook or business or whatever? And so what are you really doing for fun that has nothing to do with that? And I love that you said that, because too, what happens, and I remember this when I worked in the corporate world, we would go do functions. We didn't have Topgolf, but there was things we would do like around something like that. And oftentimes we didn't have our spouses with us too. And so what are you doing? Not just fun for yourself, but what are you doing for fun with your family and with your kids? Because they also need some of that time. But also outside of all of them, what are you doing fun just with yourself? Because sometimes we think, I was speaking the other day with a group and sharing that fun and self-care doesn't mean everybody in your family, your kids, your spouse has to be involved. It also could be as simple as sitting out front on a swing and swinging on on a bed, or I have a front porch swing, and it's a twin size bed, and I've gone out there and fallen asleep on it many times. It's so fun. Or it could be going for a walk and seeing a swing in the playground. And like, when's the last time you got in the swing in a playground? It's not just for kids, you guys. You should, whether it's a tight fit or not, just get on it, because it's such a feeling of like a kid again, But I love that you share that side about finding that you went through this process, and the second one was F for fun. So finding that time, and then you're creating that space for yourself too. So I love that you shared that. So now let me ask you this. So Sally, you're a business owner. You own the business. It's all Sally, and she's got some great staff I know that work with her. So how do you separate Sally, because as entrepreneurs, and I'm asking this because it was interesting. I have a friend who, unfortunately, her mom's been in the hospital, and we're the CEO of our businesses. We are our business, so we are the CEO of our business. And I remember we were talking, and she made a comment that one of her family members was like, "Well, I can't be there because I have to go with the CEO because on this trip." And my friend is like, "I run my business. I'm the CEO. What So how have you ever come across that where your family's like, oh, you own your business, so you could just go do that? Like, how do you balance that to say, like your husband when he was sick, right? You had to be able to say, I have to put my business here and I need to put this hat on over here. But sometimes family or friends don't understand that I can't be there to help with this situation with a loved one because I am the CEO of my company. How do you balance that? How do you communicate that with people?
I'll be perfectly honest with you, it's never been a problem for me. And I think I am, the way my brain functions is a little different than a lot of, and the way I like to refer to it is I think of my brain as file drawers, right? And I have all these different files in there. And so I'm running SW Insurance Corp, and my husband's got cancer. And he is now working at home because we're in COVID, which is a whole nother world, right? And I just opened the file drawer. SW Insurance Corp is what I'm doing right now. And I close all the other drawers. And I am blessed that I learned at a very young age that my decisions and what other people think about me is none of my business. And so for them to, if they judged me, they didn't verbalize it to me because I'm one of the quirks of my personality is if you do me dirty, I don't give you a second chance. I may allow you to be in the sounds tacky. I may allow you to be in the periphery of my life, but you will never be here ever again if you do something that is extremely judgmental to me. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things I had to do, and my husband was sick, because he had his own company, right? But I couldn't run his company. That was the difference. I don't have he has a lot of high-level security licensing, and I didn't want any part of that. So on the periphery, I couldn't help him with his company any more than he could help me with mine, right? And so I didn't, that happened when he was sick, I didn't have to worry about. But I don't allow other people to infringe on my thought patterns when they're that different, right? I can't walk in your shoes. I might walk in, like in your case. I mean, you and I have walked in very similar shoes, and we're only a year apart when they happened. I'm a year past where you're at right now, and I can't walk in your shoes any more than you can walk in mine, but I understand what the journey is. It's not exact, but there's a different level of compassion and empathy that comes in, and knowing that, like me, you have this smile and this warmth and this greatness to be around people and to share your story with people. But we also have the days that we don't want to talk to anybody. And if people around us don't get that, then they don't belong around us. And I am real fast to put up that boundary. I learned so much when my husband got sick. Granted, nothing that we did that year had a well-worn path that it has prior to COVID.
Right.
Oncology offices, emergency rooms, hospitals, funerals. I know people that during COVID that their family members were sick in the hospital and they couldn't see them. Because of my husband's particular condition, the floor nurse allowed our daughter and me to be in his room anytime we wanted. We just had to go through the emergency room. They had our name that we were allowed to come through. So, there's just a myriad of things, but I am very, very good about my boundaries and always have been.
And I love that you said boundaries, because that is what is so important. I'm glad that I knew you were going to go there. That's why I asked you the question, because you're right. We have these file cabinets in our head, and we have to know, I'm going to work on this at this time, and then I'll take care of this when I need to. And like you said, if a lot of times it's other people's stuff, like they don't get it, and so they're dealing with stuff, and they don't want to project it onto others. And really, it is important to have boundaries. It is important to say, yeah, you can come in my peripheral world, but if you're going to treat me a certain way, you're not coming into this world. And I love that you pointed that out, because we have to set those boundaries. We have to, I've often shared the story about when my dad became very racial towards my son, and I found out things afterwards. Like, I didn't know it was going on at the time. And when I found out afterwards, I actually said to his ex-wife, who's the one who told me some of the stuff, I was like, it probably was a good thing I didn't know, because God forbid knows what I would have done. Right. But at that point, I had to make the decision, what's my boundaries? And I went back to when my parents divorced after 43 years of marriage. I think I was like 25, or no, I was older than that. It was 2017 or 2005 it happened. And so I remember that it was, here I was married with 2 kids, and I felt like I was being torn in these directions. Like, wait, what is this? Right. And I was at a church retreat, and we had time with Father Bill. And I remember saying to him, this is what's happening. And I feel like I'm like getting torn. He goes, listen, he put his hand on my hand. He said, we don't pick our parents. God picks our parents. You're going to love them. But if somebody has to sit in the bench, it's your ball game. You sit them on the bench. And I walked away from that weekend going, I'm applying that to every part of my life. Like, it's not just my parents, it's every part of my life. And that's kind of the what set me off to be like, okay, I've got this, and really understanding boundaries. Like, I heard boundaries and everything. And, I hadn't at that point gone through my coaching program, but I was like, okay, this is what boundaries is about. You can sit on a bench. When I looked at his ball game, I was like, I'm a big football fan. So I was like, yeah, you don't have the talent I need right now. So you need to sit in the bench, And so I'm glad you shared that, because it is so important for the listeners to understand that boundaries are really key in helping with anxiety and stress and where you want to go. Because sometimes if you don't have the boundaries, they'll take you off the path that you're supposed to be going. And then all of a sudden, when you realize, oh my gosh, I can't believe all that happened, you're way behind from like what we were talking earlier about getting to the journey you want to get. So it's really important to have those steps in place, have a business coach, have a coach that can help you figure out what your journey is. Like, inside what your journey is, but you have to figure it out. And if you don't know how, that's where your coach or therapist or somebody comes in to help you with that. And you, like you said, Sally, we've had, we're about a year apart, like you said, and there's, some understanding around those feelings that happen. And you're right. There are days, you guys, when I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Don't call me. I will put my phone on do not disturb, and just and allow myself to work through that wave as it comes. And it's really important that even in life, there's got to be waves that come in your life, and how you respond to them are so, so important. And so, Sally, what I want to ask you, on the back of your wall, it talks about joy. And so we in the Shiro League, so for those that are listening, I have a group of ladies, we call it the Shiro League. And the way it came about, Sally, was just before COVID. This year will be our 7th retreat we're doing in Gulf Shores, Alabama. I'm so, so excited. But before COVID, I had done probably 3 or 4 retreats. And around the 3rd one, I think it was, the ladies were like, well, how are we going to stay connected after the retreat? We got these great connections with the women. And so we came up with the Shiro League, and it was just called that. Like, we just like, oh, we're women that are heroes. Like, we didn't really break it down. And so over the years, as COVID came upon us, I was watching some of the women that had gone to the retreat and women that I know on Facebook that were moms trying to balance, like going, oh my gosh, now I got to balance my job on Zoom. I have to balance my spouse's or significant other, their job on Zoom. And then, oh, wait a minute, now I got to become a teacher for my children. And I don't like to teach, right? So I just watched this overwhelm, and I decided to start, like, really build the Shiro League into something totally different than what it was, and really bring women together to talk about self-care. That we don't know, it was early on COVID. We didn't know what was going to happen, how long we were going to be shut down for. I think we had just gotten shut down. And so I came up and put this together, and I wanted to create and help women create around Shiro being strong, becoming happy, becoming empowered, becoming radiant, and becoming original during this craziness that was happening in our world, right? And so every Sunday evening we get together, and it's grown so much. Now we have, I think we have 25 women that are in there. They're not all there every week, but they're connected to us. And we get together every Sunday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. And so, January, everybody starts their goals. Oh, it's the New Year's Eve. Let's figure out what we're going to do. It's like, come on, why you got to wait till December 31st to do this, right? And so, but we didn't do any of that in the group in January. And so about mid-February, end of February, I said, okay, we're going to start working on 6-week goals. We're going to break out what you want to do for the year and show you don't have to wait for the end of the year to create these goals. So one of the first things they had to do was to write down 10 things that bring them joy. And the thing was, yeah, and it wasn't just like, oh, my kids bring me joy. Well, why do your kids should bring you joy, but why? Like, if you want to say your kids do, great. Why? Like, for me, my son Nate brings me joy because he's got an old soul. I can have amazing conversations with him. I learn from him all the time about politics, things that I didn't even know. And so we have really good conversations. And then another one of the ladies in the group, she said, well, my clients bring me joy. When I cut their hair, I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, they're bringing joy. I said, but why? And when she finally broke it down, she's like, they bring her joy because every time they leave, they have a new outlook on life. They feel beautiful inside and they're just so happy. I'm like, there you go. So I'm not going to ask you, Sally, for 10 things that bring you joy, but I would love for you to share with the listeners, what are the top 3 things that bring you joy and why do they bring you joy?
Probably the one thing I'm joyful of every day is when I wake up, right? I mean, because it gives me an opportunity to change the world. And when I say change the world, I mean, I'm not responsible for what goes on in the world, but I am responsible for what happens around me. And that's why I have joy up there. It reminds me when I'm on podcast, something else, that life and living and being able to live in a country that for the most part, we can be whatever we want to be as long as we have the aptitude for it, right? And I've always had the aptitude of being around people and being able to help them draw out their life and find things in their life that can bring them joy. That gives me joy when I can help other people facilitate in their own mind what's going on. So I'm joyful that I wake up every single morning, and I try to make sure I do things to make sure I wake up every single morning because we're not guaranteed that. So I'm always joyful. Second, obviously I've got a daughter. I love her. I love her to death. And like your son, my daughter was born an old soul. She's an only child, and I think there's just a lot of things that come with having an only child that they are an old soul, and I can have conversations with her, and I know that there's one person for the most part in my life that I can count on. If I need her to be here today, she'll be here today. And we don't get that, right? And I think that's one of the things I when you were talking before that I like to touch on about, we have all these people in our spheres, right? And you get to the point where you've like put people in a box that, well, if something really bad happens, then I know I can count on them. You can't. Depending on the circumstances, it isn't that they don't want to. They are, because of their own head trash, unable to do what you're asking of them. And so one of the things that brings me joy is that I recognize a couple things early on for me. Number one, the closest hand for help is attached to my own arm. And so the one person that's responsible for me and can give myself joy is me. So I don't look to anybody else to bring me joy. I try to be around people that bring me joy. And those people, right? Those people. Third thing, let's say my daughter waking up every day, joy. And living in this country, right? And you can choose where you want to live. Okay, so I'm a little envious because I would rather be in Florida where the sun is shining, which it's shining here, but it's like 32 degrees. And it's just a little tad different than what you're 75, 80 today. I mean, but I have lived in that, right? I lived in Southern California for a lot of years. And so 65, 75 year round was kind of what we did there. So there are, but bottom line is I have a choice, right? I could live in Orlando or Tampa or any place like that. If I chose to do that, I could do that. And so the joy comes from living in a country where we're able to really choose. We have choices, and the fourth one that I just an analogy that I like, and it's called I call it ripples of change. And so you have this beautiful serene lake that you've just walked around. You picked up this beautiful smooth rock, right? And we all grew up, or a lot of us grew up where we could skip rocks on a lake. But this serene lake, you skip this rock across it, and it creates these ripples. And I like to think when we're skipping that rock across and we're creating these ripples, this is all the positive energy that we surround ourselves with, right? The people that are in our life that for the most part are positive and lift us up and we lift them up. And when all of us are lifting, we can go higher. But sometimes when we throw that rock, instead of it skipping across that the clear lake, the smooth lake, it just plops to the bottom. And what happens is instead of those ripples of joy going out, they now get sucked down into this abyss with the rock to the bottom of the lake in all this turbulent, dark, mucky water. That's that negative energy that some people live in. We know people like that. I try to stay as far away from those energies as is possible because that's the complete opposite of joy. Now, I don't write them off completely, but some people, I call them the drama llamas of life, love that negative energy and they love to sit there and they like to invite all of us to their pity party. And so I make a conscious effort that if someone is constantly spewing negatives, that I get as far away from them as possible. And I try to recognize when I am spewing those things because we all do. We all do. So that's it.
I love those. Those are great. And that analogy at the end, that last one too, is so true because we choose who we have around us. And you're right. We may go to them for help, but they may not be able to help us. And that's their stuff, not your stuff. And
Yep.
I love that you shared that. And, you're right. That's one of the things that, I was sharing a story the other day at an event. We were talking about, the different things we get to do because of our country. And I was sharing the story that when I was in high school, I went to school in West Palm Beach area. And the school I went to, we had some actors' kids that were there with us. And then we had some families that had very predominant jewelry stores. That's where we went and bought their high-end jewelry. And I remember, my dad did 3 tours in Vietnam. And I remember it was my junior year of high school. And back, we did the Pledge of Allegiance, supposed to stand up and all that. And these 2 girls in front of me, their dads owned the high-end jewelry store. And they were standing up there and they wouldn't stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. And it just aggravated me. This is like 1981, 1980. So it's a long time ago before we have all the stuff that we're doing today. And I would get mad. And after like 2 weeks of this, they were new to the school. They were, they were definitely here from another country. I don't even remember where they were from, but that they weren't originally from the US. And I got so mad by the end of the second week of them not standing up. Got up. I got sent down to the principal's office for this. I got up and I said,
No.
I said, you're in the US. You're here and your dads get to do this great business they're doing. You should stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I got really mad. And so my teacher goes, Pearl, go down to the principal's office. I was like, okay, fine, but you should still stand up. And so I was like, because we have this choice of being able to share how we feel in this country and everything. And I remember going down to the principal's office and they're like, Pearl, you didn't. I go, I did. And call my dad. I don't care. Don't call my mom. Call my dad. They're like, why not call my mom? I go, because I want you to call my dad. Because I knew what my dad was going to say. Good for you. So, and this is back before they would just send you home. I mean, now you'd get sent home for that. You probably get kicked out of school for those kind of things now, I'm sure. But they called my dad. My dad said, well, I can come pick her up, but I'm probably going to take her for ice cream or take her to the beach or something. So, because she hasn't done anything wrong. So it's your choice. What do you want me to do? And I got to stay at school. So, but I love that you said that because we are so blessed to have these opportunities to own a business, to do the things that we're able to do, to go live wherever we want to live in our country. And it is a blessing. And I love that you share that as well. And having, military in my family, it's very, very dear to my heart as well. And so, okay, so now you've done your joy. Now comes the hard part. So, oftentimes we have these things we want to do, spend time with our children, run our business, go on vacation anywhere in this country that we want to go to, whatever is on your joy list. If you're a listener and you're asking, like, where do I just start? Just start with what brings you joy. Just start there. And then every day look at that list and just remind yourself, these are the things that make your heart warm. So now, to do the things that are on our joy list, Sally, we have to eliminate things. And, we make these lists for everything. A list of the to-dos for my business, a list of the to-dos for going to the grocery store, a list of the to-do for the kids, right? we never stop to make the list of what not to do. Like, what is it that I have to stop doing that's keeping me from spending time with my children, from spending time with the things I love to do, or traveling, whatever that is. So on your list, Sally, what are the top 3 things? Now, they had to make 10 again. And this, I'm telling you guys, listeners, this was not easy work. I think we ended up taking a month just to work through these 2 areas. So I want to ask Sally, what are the top 3 things that are on your not to-do list that if you continue to do them, you wouldn't be able to do the things that bring you joy?
Top 3 things. That is a really tough question. That's a really tough question. Typically, I mean, like for me, when I put my insurance hat on, right? I have fourth quarter crazy. I have a lot of groups that renew in December and January. And so it's always just a little bit long days, there's 7 days a week, 10 and 12-hour days. But by March 1st, I'm usually breathing a sigh of relief. I've gotten past that. But this year hasn't been that. It hasn't been that way. It's just the crazies continued. And so I have a 4-block piece of paper that I do every year, every week. And it's the things that have to be done. These have got to be done. And this is the date they have to be done by. And it's usually that week. And then these are the things that I would love to make room for. These are the things that are on my, for lack of a better word, my bucket list. And these are things that when I have brain cells available in time that I want to get done, because as soon as I write them down somewhere, I can release them from my mind. Because my greatest fear is forgetting something that I really want to do, right? And so when for example, I'm going to a mastermind in Cancun in April. So I know I'm gone for 4 days, and you know what happens when you're out of town? The day before you leave and the day you get back are just like out of control. I will start working a lot of extra hours in order to make room for that. Because when I'm gone, my cell phone does not have my business emails on it. Does not have it. And I did that because I did put it on there for a while, and I found I was on there answering questions at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night because I could. I have to, there again, boundaries, right? My clients in my insurance world know I work Monday through Friday. I'm at my desk usually by 7, but I don't even listen to voicemails till 11, 12, 1 o'clock. And so I think in order to make room for the things I want to do, I have to make sure I take care of the things that are the most important. And, SW Insurance Corp, my clients need my help. That's why they're my clients. And so I have to make sure I take care of them. And so that if I have to go to block, I call it block time. If I have to block out every single day, 5 hours that I only work on that have to get done job. And that's usually what I do first thing in the morning is I get done those have to get done stuff so that it opens up, because we don't know what the rest of the day is going to bring, right? That the rest of the day, a bus could come by and smack us upside the head and say, you're not going to do that. But the other blessing of being self-employed is if I get up tomorrow, because I had a late appointments last night. You're early this morning. I won't get home till 9:30 tonight. So tomorrow, with the exception of two things that are on my midday schedule, I will probably get up whenever I want to. And I'll probably will take the afternoon off and do nothing but sit and read.
And I love that you shared, like, you create that block thing. And that's really important, because the not to do in that scenario is to not have that system in place, right? To not have a system in place that keeps me from making sure I need to accomplish the things I need to do so I can go do the things I enjoy. That was such a great example. And the thing is too, is the other thing I would say to those that are listening is that when you do the list, and Sally is a business owner too, and I know she has an assistant, but there's things on your list, if you're a business owner, that you need to look at and say, do I really need to do these things, or can I give them to somebody else to do? Because when you do that, then you also have time to do the things that bring you joy. Like I have somebody that helps me with all the scheduling my podcasts, make sure everybody, like before Sally got here, she made sure Sally had all the paperwork I was going to need, forms and everything filled out. And then she does the reminders for everybody for me as well. And so that for me was like, I need to hand that off to Patty because it allows me to have time to do the things I want to do in my business and also make sure I have time for myself to do the things I enjoy doing. So I love that you share that block as well, Sally.
Yeah. And it's, there again, I've been blessed in so many different ways. I learned at a very young, early age. I was put in leadership roles from 4th grade on, just because I'm a Libra, right? And if you're a horoscope person at all, Libras like things balanced, and I can see both sides of a problem, right?
Right.
And I can understand most people's both sides. May not be that I agree with both sides, but I can understand both sides. And so I like things to be balanced. But I learned very early on how to say no.
Oh, see, that was
taught many friends. No.
But wait,
and I do that.
I want to point out something. So for the listeners, you guys have heard me talk before about we say yes so excitedly. And Sally, when she was saying no, she was smiling. And I mean, that's the big key is we're so happy to say yes. But when we want to say no, we're like, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. No, Sally said it just like I say to do it. Say no. I'm a Libra too, but I had a problem with that balance for a long time because I, at a young age, I had to be out on my own. And so I didn't understand the whole balance. But now that I understand it, I'm getting it down. But, I was a people pleaser. So I had to stop that. And to stop that, Sally actually put a pebble in my pocket and I would move it 3 times during the day. If I didn't have pockets, you guys, it was in my bra strap. So because I had to make sure I worked on that 3 times a day, I had to say no to something. And what I found, and this works really well, is that you start saying yes to the things that you really were waiting to say yes to. And I love that Sally, said so excitedly to no. So if you're not listening, if you're not watching on YouTube with us, you will know that Sally was smiling so big when she said no. And I love that you reminded us that that's Sally.
Well, people don't want you to be wishy-washy, right? If I say no, I can't do that, and I don't give you an explanation, and you get mad at me for that, that's on you,
right.
Not on me.
Right.
It's on you. I said no because I either wasn't interested, which we can't be interested in everything. I'm already busy. I don't have, I've been invited to probably no less than 6 events, at least 6 events in the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Right.
And it isn't that I don't want to be there. I can't completely be on the road all the time. And I did that last year. Last year, I had an absolute blast. Can I tell you? I was gone every single month somewhere in this country for the books and all that. And that's my word. It's been for 2 years now, is to jump. Say yes and jump. But I don't say yes to everything. So last year I jumped a lot, but I jumped with people that I knew, liked, and trusted. Right. And so when like, and trust a group of people, and they say, we're going here. We were at an event in February in Orlando, and I left before the other 2 ladies did. And by the time I landed, my phone had blown up saying, you've got to be in Dallas. You've got to be in Dallas in April. You have to be in Dallas. And I'm thinking, well, I'm just coming back from another trip. How can I be in Dallas? And I said, okay, got to be in Dallas. So I switched my flight. And from the other trip I was on in Savannah and Charleston, I went from there to Dallas. I didn't even come home. And so when you're with people that like, and trust, it's easy to say yes and jump. But this year, yes, I'm still jumping. And yes, I'm saying yes, but I say no a lot more because I'm now in that balance zone, right? And a lot of the things that I do with sallywurr.com, which is my website and stuff for my speaking and my books and my coaching, I have to now get that into the monetization zone. And so I'm spending a lot of time with my web developers and promoting that, right? Which reminds me to give the website for your listeners to go ahead and get a freebie from me. So
yes, so I want you to share. So let me go ahead and ask you to share your freebie and share how everybody can reach you, Sally.
Okay, so SallyWurr.com. So www.sallywurr, that's SALLYWURR gmail.com/work with me. If you just go there, it's going to take you to a site on my website where you can download, put your name and contact information, download a summary that I did. It's discover, 5 steps of discovering you. And it's like the primer to start getting you into learning about awakening your own mind. And are you doing what you should be doing in life? And so that's the easiest way. And you can contact me via the website as well. And then my email is sallywurr@gmail.com. And of course, I'm all over Facebook, right? Sally Wurr. I mean, I use Sally Wurr for everything because that's my name and I like it. And it's easy for people to remember. But I developed this five steps to discovering you because I want people to start thinking about, are they doing what their purpose really is?
Right.
Because so many times people tell us what we should be doing, and maybe it doesn't feed all of us. I'm not saying give up your day job, but really and truly, when you look at the number of hours in a week, there's usually time to do 1 or 2 things for you. And so I want people to start thinking in that direction.
Awesome. And we'll make sure everybody that we will put the links on everywhere we drop Sally's interview today, especially on the YouTube channel at Conversations with Pearl. But everywhere you want to listen to podcasts, just go to Conversations with Pearl. And I also want to remind everybody that if you are interested in learning more about the Shiro League, all you have to do is email hello@wsliving.com. That's hello@wsliving.com. And in the subject matter, just put Shiro, and we will get you all that information. And oh my gosh, Patty, I can't believe we got just a few minutes left here. And one of the things we have to do, and I'm going to forewarn Patty, Sally, that I didn't tell her about this. So I don't know if she's prepared, but it's okay. So Sally, we have these cards, Better Questions, Better Life. And
I like that.
Yes. And my friend did this with her friend. They're betterquestionsbetterlife.com. I get nothing monetary, you guys. So go do these cards. But I'm going to shuffle them. There's 77 different cards that ask you questions. And so I'm going to shuffle them. And Sally, you're going to tell me when to stop. And we're going to read the card to you. So tell me when to stop, my dear.
Stop.
Oh, my goodness. She got me early. Oh, my goodness. She's got a good one, you guys. Is what I am doing for the greatest good of all concerned?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And why?
I believe that I have never wasted a moment of my life. I truly believe that. I choose the journeys that I've been on, and I get rid of things that no longer serve me. And I think that there again, it's one of those God-given things, tools in my toolbox, but we are on this playing field of life. This is what I have to work with. What you have is what you have to work with. And if you're not making it the best that it can possibly be, then you need to figure out what you need to do differently. But I wake up every day and say, okay, so this is how I think today is going to go. How could I fit this in and move that and, turn things around if I have to make room for something else? But I want, I always call it my 10 toes time, right? When my recliner goes up and my 10 toes are up in the air, I want to know that I enjoyed as much of the day as I possibly could, and that perchance I made my day, the day of somebody else's, better, and hopefully multiple people's better, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have to do that in person. It's by answering a question for a client that they didn't know the answer to, giving somebody directions, reaching out to a friend that has had a loss or is struggling because, their mom or their dad lives close by and they're just creating havoc and, the drama llamas in life. But we all have control of making our life the best it can be. And if it isn't, then you need to reach out and keep reaching out till you find those people that can help you get to that point, right? I love those cards.
You got to get some. Better Questions, betterlife.com. Get some cards. For sure. Go grab them. Well, I'm so excited you were on today, Sally. And you're right. We are control of us, and we are control of what brings you happiness. And I'm glad Sally reminded you guys all of that. And, setting boundaries, I think, is one of the big things we've talked about today, is having your boundaries in place and understanding you're in control of the boundaries. And if they don't belong within your boundaries, it's okay to have them step outside of the gate or put them on a bench for a little bit if you need to. So again, I want to thank Sally for joining us today. And I want to remind all of you listening that as you come into this world, you are this rough oyster on the outside, and you need to work on that inner self. And as you do, you begin to open up your oyster and you find your inner pearl of greatness. So I hope you have a great day, and please go find your inner pearl of greatness.